Hi, welcome to Sacred Enzyme. I'm Stacy, and today I'd like to take a few minutes and talk about some old world stuff. And I was looking at alchemy. I've been reading a lot about alchemy, and I've got a book, two books that I've got coming about alchemy, and we're gonna get deep into alchemy because I've been alchemy gardening for a while. And I have some things that I want to show you that I'm working on for alchemy, and I want to do a little video on it. And I had all my stuff prepared, and then I broke my ankle. So there's not much walking to be done right now for me out in the yard. So I'm really disappointed that, but you know what? I think they'll be okay for a few days because they're in the putrefaction process. I like to putrefy everything, and it really grows like crazy. So we're going to get further into alchemy, and we're going to learn more about alchemy gardening and just how these different elements correspond to each other and how enzymes work and how you can really do a great job growing your garden just doing a few steps of putrefaction beforehand. But in studying that, I started, I've been reading about angels, I've been reading about alchemy, I've been reading about so many different things all at once. And I like to do that because you can stumble on one thing that's totally related to another in another field. And if you're only staying in one lane, then you're only getting one portion of the picture. So I always feel like it's important to be well-versed in a variety of different things. If you're going to be studying something, you need to study all different forms of study. You can't just study one thing. See, this is the problem that we're in today, is because everybody's in a particular field, and there's not anybody that's in a well-rounded field. We need more jack of all trades and masters of none, just jacks of all trades, but in doing that, and I've been studying a lot about architecture because, the universal laws totally play into the architecture, and especially the old world architecture, because we have amnesia now that I don't think there's an architect on this planet that could build anything from this Epicurean era. And so what I want to talk about today in this one is I want to talk about Epicurus. I want to talk about Epicurus because Epicurus was a philosopher, but he really started a movement. And Epicurus was born, he was born in the 300s sometime. He was born in around 300, and he taught a lot of people. I mean, it says Epicurus' teachings influenced a lot of other philosophers. But the interesting thing about his philosophy was he had a school of thought that was talking about moderation, totally moderation, and being an active participant in your life and learning things and being productive and and not being gluttonous, just being balanced. We always talk about this. We talk about how balance and moderation is perfection, and balance is everything. So Epicurus asserted that philosophy's purpose is to attain as well as to help others attain happy, tranquil lives characterized by peace and freedom from fear. Okay, what are we living in right now? Are we our government and powers that be, elites, they're constantly trying to put us in a pathological state of anxious fear, and I don't think it's a mistake. I really don't. I mean, they're harvesting our energy. We have creatures here that live in the midway area, and they survive off of our negative energy loop. And as long as we keep staying out of balance, then we'll just keep feeding them. We'll just keep feeding them. It's like literally the machine. It literally is the machine. So he taught that the root of all human neurosis is denial of death and the tendency for human beings to assume that death will be horrific and painful. A long time ago, they used to celebrate your death. They used to celebrate your death because you're going back to heaven. But now, obviously, since we're afraid of death, maybe our soul knows that there's been so many things that we've done in our past that we're not looking forward to dying, because we know that, we got we're going to have some complications with Dad. You know what I mean? It's kind of like when you do something wrong. It's when you're in school and, you know, when you get home, well, when in my day, when you got home, you know, you could get your ass beat with the belt. So you weren't looking forward to going home, you know? So you were dreading it. So maybe that's what we've been doing all this time. Maybe we have just not been looking forward to going home because we're afraid of our wrath, right? But if we were living the right way, it'd be no big deal. No big deal at all. So, according to Epicurus, death is the end of both the body and the soul, and therefore should not be feared. Epicurus taught that although the gods exist, they have no involvement in human affairs. He taught that people should act ethically, not because the gods punish or reward them for their actions, but because due to the power of guilt, a moral behavior would inevitably lead to remorse weighing on their consciences, and as a result, they would be prevented from attaining peace and freedom from fear. Which I do kind of believe this, except I do believe that God and the angels will involve themselves with humanity in extreme emergencies and when we ask them to. You have to ask. Just like with the devil and just like with these midway creatures, you have to permit them. You have to permit them. You have to allow them to manipulate you. And one of those things that Epicurus really did that I found was interesting and might be why we have some of these massively huge structures on our planet was that he ended up having like a huge following. Okay, here it was. He was born a year 341 and he died 270. Well, he was from the Athenian group of people. His parents were on the island of Samos in Greece, and they were Athenian. And so he was influenced by quite a few other philosophers. But he started a school, and this is what I want to get to. So he started a school, and he started these huge schools that, like, we're talking about, like, let me think of one of these buildings, one of these lunatic asylums. Like, oh, there's one in Kentucky that's super famous. I can't think of it. Well, anyway, there's a bunch of asylums that are all over the country, and they are massive buildings. I mean, they take up acres and acres and acres of property. And then we have monasteries that are huge, and you think, man, that's really big for a church. You know what I mean? And you have a lot of these old world buildings, these colleges and whatnot. Okay, well, they are from another period. And these Epicurean people that were taking up this school of thought, he had huge contributors to this, monetary contributors. And so they built all of these schools, and they lived communally. It was communal living. Just like I have been talking about, I thought that there were communal living arrangements that were going on here a long time ago. And a lot of these places didn't have like plumbing and stuff in them, which I thought was strange. So, I mean, some of them may have been even earlier. Or they followed a different food regimen. And that's that's the one I'm going to talk to in the next video. Because our food that we eat is so important to our body. In more ways than one, spiritually included. So the Epicurean schools were all over the planet. And then those were taken when Epicurus' idea was, you know, poo-pooed. When they finally poo-pooed him. Because, you know, we had a whole planet of people that were actually living in moderation. And they were learning. They were in these schools. They were living communally. They were learning things. And they were living in like a golden age, truthfully. Well, the other thing I want to talk about is, you know how when you're watching like these English shows, these old English shows, you'll see them like frolicking around in these mazes all the time, and they got their high walls and they're green. They have them in like these little English romance novels, like they go out the back of their big fancy castle-y house, and they got this maze that's in the backyard, and they got to run through the maze or go through the maze, try to get to the other side, and it's all these high trees and you can't see over the top. Well, these labyrinths were actually spiritually motivated. They were set up for spiritual motivation. Each portion of these labyrinths contained one of the 5 elements of the 5 archangels. And so the interesting thing about this is that according to what part of the labyrinth you're in is realization of some sort of yourself, okay? So first of all, the shape of a labyrinth has vibration. Just like we talked about star forts, because the shape of a star fort creates dipoles. So the shape of a labyrinth is creating energy. Just like all of these archangels have a corresponding shape to them. Like, you know, one of them is a shape. Michael is a circle. He's also the omega sign. You know, that Greek symbol? He's that sign upside down. But I mean, he's a lot of different signs and symbols. We're looking at that in the book. But you know, all the other archangels, they all have different symbols too. They call them sigils. But you know, they're related to alchemy. They're related to planets, and we're related to the exact same thing. We mirror all this, you know, the cosmos, everything. It's all, when it all comes down to it, it's all universal laws. It's really mind-blowing to think that it just could be so simple, yet we've made it so hard, or maybe we've just not been told. So the labyrinth has 8 circles, a center, and then 4 meditation sites in the corner, kind of like a star fort has. You know, when you have the star fort, you've got the top, the bottom, and all of those, you know, in a star fort, basically the star fort is giving you the shape of, oh gosh, I should have wrote it down. Well, anyway, the shape of it contains basically all of the elements for the tree of life in a star fort. So that's interesting. So all of these shapes have different purposes, energy, everything. And I've been reading this really old book. It's called How to Build a Pyramid. And this guy talks about how he built a pyramid and everything in his yard started growing incredible. And the reason is because the shape of a pyramid magnifies energy. So he was magnifying all his plants outside. He was magnifying everything. So I thought, wow, that is really freaking cool. I want to build a pyramid-shaped greenhouse to grow all the vegetables in for the alchemy garden. And, you know, so we can start plants and stuff with the heirloom seeds, so we can start exchanging these plants so people can start growing their own food. You know what I mean? We got to start doing it. So the 5 elements that are represented in the labyrinth shape is ether, wood, air or metal, fire, water, and earth. Okay? And they're protected by archangels. So you have an archangel that corresponds with the elements. But it goes even further than that. Because just like Gabriel represents the element of water, we have to talk about some minerals. And I'm always talking about how people that have like these Nephilim genes, you can't handle high levels of phosphorus. Your body can't process it. Too much phosphorus, it creates a lot of cysteine in your body, creates a lot of inflammation. Well, guess who is phosphorus? Morning star. Phosphorus is the god of the planet Venus, and its appearance as the morning star. Os Phosphoros or Hesphosphoros, which means dawn bringer. The term Eosphoros is sometimes met in English as an adjective. The word phosphorus means light bringing. For instance, the dawn, the god Dionysus, pine torches and the day, and torch bearing. We have the goddesses Hecate, 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 but also Artemis, Diana, and Hephaestus. Venus is the light bringer in the northern hemisphere, alluding most brightly in December. Christmas, right? Christmas, phosphorus, Lucifer. Anybody? Exactly. The morning star, in an appearance of the planet Venus, an inferior planet, meaning that its orbit lies between the Earth and the Sun. The firmament, right? Almost like they're describing the firmament. The morning star is an inferior planet. Absolutely. He's definitely inferior. Inferior to the sun. And they say that Michael is the archangel of the sun. That's why his symbol is a circle with a dot in it. So it says that phosphorus represents... Venus is the brightest object in the sky after the sun and the moon, outshining the planets Jupiter and Saturn. But we've had a lot of Jupiter worship. We've had a lot of Saturn worship. And, you know, when we're worshiping all of these fire gods, that usually means war, right? Phosphorus is in brimstone and sulfur and brimstone. You know, they talk about, but phosphorus is fire. So, and phosphorus is also, if we have too much phosphorus in our body, it can kill us. It can kill us because we're not meant to take all that phosphorus. It just damages our protein. And our protein controls our energy and our electricity. And we're made up of electricity. Our cells are electric. So phosphorus is the morning star. But the other thing is, it says is that Hesperus is phosphorus. And it says Hesperus is phosphorus. It's used in terms of the evening star. Evening star. Now, I have read that there's a morning star and an evening star, and that the evening star is actually a different archangel than Lucifer. That the morning star is one, and the evening star is another. So Gabriel, he is the element of water. And Gabriel encourages thriving and fertility. So it almost sounds like Gabriel could be the evening star. And this is where we get this time during Atlantis. Because Gabriel, from the way I understand it, has a lot to do with the Urantia book. And we had the Garden of Eden. And we had Hesperides. And Hesperides and the evening star, I think, have a correlation. Now, we do have a lot of phosphorus in Florida, which is ironically strange that we have so much phosphorus here. And the golden apples grow really good in phosphorus, high phosphorus. So, that's a whole nother can of worms. That's a whole nother can of worms. So, we've really got to be looking at our diet and not eating too much Lucifer. Because he's coming into your body to wreak havoc. So if you're eating a lot of phosphorus, and you know there's tons of phosphorus in blood and meat. So, and especially now because everything is contaminated. And so there's a lot of phosphorus. You spend a lot of time eating things, red meats, then you're getting a lot of phosphorus. And the other thing is that ties in with your root chakra. And your root chakra is your first chakra, and it controls your basic life mechanisms. It's your very bottom, the very bottom base. That is your root system. So you're damaging your roots with too much phosphorus. And so you've got to stop eating so much red blood, and you need to start eating red fruits and vegetables to heal it. So if you've been in the past, you've been a big protein eater, you might want to reconsider eating so much of the red meat. And, well, any kind of blood, because protein in the phosphorus in the protein in chicken is worse than beef, I think, from the way I understand it. There's a lot more phosphorus. And then the animals that their waste, pig waste, is absolutely so full of phosphorus that it's bad for the environment. I mean, it's getting all in the water table. But I'm not going to get on all of that because, you know, I'll have people coming after me with knives and pitchforks because there's so many people that don't want to give up their meat. And, you know, that's your own personal, it's your own personal preference. Spiritually, I want to be clean. I want to be clean, and I want to go back to the Father. So therefore, I'm tweaking my diet. I eat nothing but fruits and vegetables, and I do eat dairy. But I'm a vegetarian. I don't eat meat. I don't consume blood. And I feel better for it. So with that, I'm going to end this video. And I'd like to hear what you think about how we have phosphorus. And you know the other thing that I think that carbon is actually our God particle. I think that carbon is represented from our creator God, because carbon is diamonds, and diamonds are like the hardest thing, right? And I was reading about what the chemical component, what they really think like the soul is made out of, and they feel it's made out of some type of carbon, but they can't measure it. And I thought that was interesting. So maybe our God particle is actually carbon, and so we have to balance our body, you know, and the minerals that make carbon. You keep it in balance. So with that, I'm going to end this video, and then we're going to come back on the next one, and we're going to talk about the alchemy symbols. We're going to talk about the archangels that they represent. We're going to also talk about the different energy zones in the body. I've done some of my first videos are on the energy zone and diets to help heal the trauma in those energy zones. So if you want to go back and look, it's like way in the beginning. But, you know, it breaks it down a little more. So this one, I'm just going to do a basic overview since I've already done that other one. And we'll get into that on the next one. So thanks for stopping in. And when you come and find me, I'm going to be here because we're living in the past, present, and the future all at the same time. So it's 22 minutes. Go outside and get you some fresh air. Put your feet in the grass. Set your intentions for the day and say it is going to be a beautiful day. And say thank you to the Heavenly Father and to our Mother, to Mother Earth. Catch you on the next one. Bye-bye.